Well, welcome. We are excited. I thought it'd be fun to have a special Mother's Day sermon. We're in the book of Proverbs, and so there's no better proverb than Proverb 31, verses 10 through 31, to look at what we'll call God's portrait of a wonderful wife and a marvelous mother. In 2005, Newsweek said moms matter and pointed out that according to salary.com, a stay-at-home mom, if compensated for all the hours they work, would net $131,000 in $131,471. So $131,471. However you say that. I don't know how to say math, I guess, very well. They'd make well over $100,000 a year. The article went on to say 71% of wives say their husband gets on their nerves more than their kids. And 50% of women said their mom was their best friend. Additionally, many working women are reevaluating who they are and what they want. Most women who step out of their careers find expected delights on the home front. So we live in this culture now where it's kind of put down the idea of being a homemaker. And it's elevated the idea of the career woman. We've been doing that for the last 30 or 40 years. And I'm not here to throw my ideas into the debate, except to say that a lot of women, when they're surveyed privately without other people knowing the information, say they wish they could be homemakers and stay-at-home mothers. And so these women who step out of careers and find expected delights on the home front, it ends up bringing this enormous relief of no longer having to worry about shortchanging their children either. I want you to get this. Motherhood, they find, provides both joy and fulfillment if it is not drowned out by all the other responsibilities of life. Do you ladies feel that pressure? Do you feel the pressure of the expectations of everything? I think men feel it too, right? We feel it on all sides. If you're trying to live up to being a responsible adult, being productive in society, you feel all these different pressure points coming on and around you. Here's a main point I have for you. Women who live faithfully before God in the power of the gospel bless their families and honor the Lord. Here's my introduction. That the perfect mother, it's no myth. I always tell guys, if you need a bullseye, you got to figure out what your manhood is aiming at. I spent over 10 years doing professional men's ministry. I made a living as a men's minister all around the region, and men need a bullseye. The bullseye is Jesus, and examining his life as we see it in the New Testament. And women too have the bullseye of aiming towards Jesus, but they have a more specific idea, as you can see it in Proverbs 31 in this magnificent portrait. Embodying all the wisdom of the book, this woman is a Jesus lady who provides every woman an example. And I am not a very intelligent person, so I need things placed on the low shelf for me. I just need instructions to follow. Some of you guys are much more brighter than I, and you kind of create ideas where I'm more of a reverse engineer. Or what I like to do and what I do best is I basically take what other people have done, and then I take it apart and put it back together again. If you followed my sermons, you'd see I do that. If you follow a lot of things I do in life, I see what other people do, and then I take it apart, and then I put it back together again for maybe the best purposes that kind of suit my life. But this idea and this portrait you're going to get from Proverbs 31 is a beautiful thing. It's simplistic, yet it's super godly. Perfection's not the goal. We're not aiming for perfection, but growth in the direction of this portrait of a godly woman, a mother, and a wife. And that should be the aim today as we're speaking to the ladies. And if you're a man here, don't check out. The husbands talked about numerous times in Proverbs 31. As well, we need to be raising men who understand how to spot the godly wife, but we also need to be raising men who are raising godly daughters, right? And this unit is meant to be worked together with a husband and a wife together, moving this thing forward together. But in Proverbs 31, 10 through 12, this is what it says. An excellent wife who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. In this opening words of this poem, who can find, it does not imply that there's not a capable woman. It's not saying she doesn't exist. It's affirming that she does exist, and she is of extreme value. She is a treasure to her husband. So if you're a man in the room and you have a wife, you should be thinking of your wife. As I read through Proverbs 31, you should be thinking of the treasure you have as a wife. You should be thinking the treasure you have in your mom. If you have a mom who's walking in the fear of the Lord, you will start to see these attributes pop out in their life as you are looking at them. Here's some application. The lady being described is a capable and excellent wife. It says she is precious, and the man and family who finds her, they are blessed. She is a treasure worth far more than jewels. We seek after so many things. In this country, we seek after so much materialistic wealth, right? When really, what we have, the great treasures right in front of us. If I'm a man and a husband, I have this treasure in Jesus. I have this treasure in my bride, and I have this treasure in my children. As a son, I have this treasure in my mom and in my dad and in my family. As a pastor, I have these treasures in the people around me who love me and who build me up and encourage me. You see all the I'm a wealthy man. I like to tell people I'm a spiritual millionaire, if you start to think about it. You look around, there's wealth in community and these relationships all around. It says her husband has full confidence in her because of her competence and her character. She knows her family's needs, and she will see that they have it. Oftentimes, we have competing views of what a man's supposed to look like. I remember growing up, the idea of a manhood, sadly, I believe, was based in the idea of how good of an athlete a person was. And so, like, I grew up admiring, like, Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and all these other, the Cubs team, Mark Grace and Ryan Sandberg and the Hawk, Andre Dawson, all these different guys, right? And I don't know all of them, but I know many of these men. If you hear about and read about their lives, they were not good husbands. They were womanizers. They were obsessed with money and career success. And you realize the people that I was growing up and told to look to for success were all the wrong model in my life. And so then where do we go and find the model from? Friends, I can tell you it doesn't come from the world. Now, it can come from like a mentor or a godly woman in your life or a godly man in your life, but like the Scriptures are the model. The Scriptures are where we go to find this portrait and this picture of what this woman begins to look like. It says this woman was described as a hard worker. She is a fountain of energy. Her husband is the spiritual leader. He might be the coach, right? So biblically, the husband would be kind of the coach, leading, giving direction over the family, but it's basically saying the wife, she's the quarterback. She's making a lot of the day-to-day plays. She's setting the players. She's executing the game plan. And so we live in this society and culture where people like to say, well, these Christians, they put down women. That's not what I read when I read Proverbs 31. I see women being esteemed and lifted high and celebrated and rejoiced and put on the idea that here's the biblical idea of husbands and wives. We're co-equals. We're co-heirs. We're most certainly created differently. And one of my mentors, when he would say something like that, he would look down at himself and say, I praise God and thank you that the women were created different than the men, right? We're created differently. We have different things about us, right? Which means we have this co-equal heirship with King Jesus, but God made men for certain things and women for certain things. Are we on the same page with that? Because society isn't. I just taught the other day, and this kid gave me this dinosaur book to read, and these were only 7-year-olds, and I quickly realized I was in trouble on page 1 because it started teaching evolution. And I said, well, I don't know how this is going to go, but I don't believe in evolution. And all the kids were like, what do you mean you don't believe in evolution? I said, well, I believe, I'm a young earth. I believe the earth is 4,000 to 6,000 years old. And so everything this book's spouting off is another hypothesis. It's a posed idea. And so you see what I'm getting at? Like, so we have all these different competing things coming in all around us. We're telling children that are 7 that evolution's fact. When the book we're reading, I pointed out to the kids several times, basically said it was hypothesis and like question and like not for sure. Most dinosaur bones aren't found complete, so then we guess and what it looked like, we guess and what it sounded like, we guess and what it ate. But yet everyone's told it's fact. And they got all their ideas from Jurassic Park, Hollywood, and all these different things about dinosaurs. That's a little side illustration. In 13 through 15, it goes on and says, she seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. Flax is the idea of this seed that they would use to put linen together. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. Basically, she takes care of the family's clothing. She takes care of the family's food. When she says she sails out and she comes back, returning later that day, basically she'll go far to pull off and do whatever the needs of her family are to make them content and well pleased. She takes care of her family's schedule. She rises before the sunrise to provide food for her household. Basically, she's a hard worker. This is the aim of the godly woman in our life. And again, we're all in process, right? None of us are going to walk this thing out perfectly on earth. We're going to have falters and missteps and errors. And John says in 1 John, if you say you have no sin, you're a liar. So we're wrestling with this sin in our life. We're trying to walk out this godliness in our life. And so I found I just need a bullseye to aim at every day. And then I can decide at the end of the day, how did I hit on my bullseye? Like as much as a godly man as I could have been. Did I demonstrate fruit of the Spirit? Did I wash my wife with the water of the Word? Did I breathe life into my children? Was I an encourager and a spur of honor to all the people that I encountered all throughout my day? That's kind of the bullseye that I aim at. When you wake up in the morning, before your feet hit the floor, you should be saying, Lord, I want to serve you today. What is it? It's the simple things, guys. It's the day-to-day that I think most Christians are failing. It's those moment-by-moment decisions that we're making or we're choosing, we'll say, an ungodly direction. We need to slow things down. And we need to take them decision by decision, moment by moment, and then aim towards this picture or portrait that God gives us in His Word on what it looks like to live this godly life. It says, she considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hand she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. She is in this business of being savvy. She's not a foolish purchaser. She's not going to put her family into debt in bad ways. She's wise. She's a good steward of the resources she's given. She is strong and has an air of confidence. She also has an idea of what fairness is. So you guys anywhere in here see this, the Christians putting down the woman here? I see a woman whose husband values and esteems and lifts up and encourages. This is biblical teaching. I don't know what the world's telling people, but this is what the Bible has to say. She is devoted to excellence. She does what she can with what she has without complaining or self-pity. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hand to the needy. She's compassionate. She's charitable. In other words, she is not so busy and consumed with her family's interest that she ignores the hurting around here. Around her, around her life, around her home, in her school. So I've been serving in the schools. The main reason I've been serving in the schools is because it's what the schools truly need. I recently met with some other churches, and we were talking about ways we could partner together to help our schools. And what a lot of churches want to do, and I even did this too, was they want to go to the school for 1 hour and have the school create a mentoring program for them. Here's a problem. That's not what the school needs. What school needs is sacrificial servants who will come for 8 hours and serve. And so I said, you know what the schools need? They need all these pastors with bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees to go substitute teach in first grade and in second grade. And it's not easy. But that's what they truly need. It's recognizing the problem. So it's the idea of seeing somebody who's in need and you tell them what you think they need versus them telling you what they need. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's recognizing, wisdom is saying, I'm going to help what they say they need, not me go ask them to invent a need and then let me fill it for them so it makes me feel good about myself. Is it hard? Yeah. Is there a little financial reward in substitute teaching? A little bit. It's not worth it, I've determined. But it's truly what they need. And then you get opportunities like I did to shoot down evolution. And then other opportunities that come up throughout the day where I was reading Proverbs 31 in my class to myself, but kids were going to me, I got one of those. I'm like, oh, you know what this is? They're like, yeah, it's a Bible. I'm like, do you read it? And they're like, sometimes. Or my mom's got one, or my dad's got one. Well, do you see him read it? Sometimes. And so all these conversations come up because all these first graders are poking around my desk as they're supposed to be working on a project or things like that. So you see meeting these needs and seeing where difficulty and challenges arise and then meeting those needs. It says she takes to heart Proverbs 11:25, which teaches the generous man will be prosperous. She treats her advantages not as an occasion for self-indulgence, but as an opportunity to give to other people. I think that's something our society needs more of. It goes on to say, she is not afraid of snow for her household. For all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Basically, when the cold weather comes, she's not hit off guard. She's not afraid of the cold weather. We're not talking modern era insulation, furnaces, houses, everything nice and comfortable. It's basically saying when it got cold, when this lady lived, people could die if she wasn't prepared. But she's not worried because she is prepared. She's ready. She has her children and household clothed in the best things that she could make and or find, and she's not going to get caught off guard. Do you understand what I'm saying? Have you guys watched those wilderness shows where they basically have to have like 30 cords of wood to survive the winter? And they'll tell you when spring hits, basically I got to start cutting wood because if I don't have 30 cords of wood, by the time winter hits, we're going to freeze to death. It's that kind of mentality of preparation and hard work that this woman in Proverbs 31 is being described as. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders. The husband who finds and wins such a wife is a fortunate man, basically. This woman is the kind of wife a man needs. She will not tear him down, but she will build him up. Sometimes you got the church face on. You got it all together. But then as soon as you get in your car, you go home, you look at your spouse and you talk to them in a whole different way than you did when you was at church or some other place. You guys do that? Don't shake your head or anything. Just, you understand what I'm saying? She will not tear him down, but will build him up. Her husband is known in the gates. So basically, at the gates, the man is known well because of who this woman is. She's thought highly of. So the husband's thought highly of. Please take note that she enhances her husband's reputation. The man's wife is a great asset. His best advertisement. So the wife's going around speaking life of her husband. She's speaking encouragement of her husband. She's telling other people how good of a husband he actually is. Moms, on Mother's Day, we speak highly of our children. How often do we tear down the men in our lives? She is a great lady who may take a mediocre man and lift him into greatness. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her husband and does not eat the bread of idleness. What is this marvelous mother like? What does this wonderful wife do? She is active. She is hungry. She is a hard worker. She makes clothing and furnishings for herself and family, making enough to sell excess to generate a profit for her family. I'm not telling you guys to go home and become seamstresses and make clothes and whatever that whole movement of like women kind of going back to like Amishy like dress. I'm not telling you guys to do any of that stuff. Like, because, it costs you a fortune to make clothes. You go to Walmart and buy it a lot cheaper nowadays. The point is that she's mindful. She's hardworking. She's seeking to be and maximize the family's abilities and income. And her husband can trust her with the resources, and she can trust her husband with the resources. How many marriages are like that? I know a lot that aren't, because I'm the pastor who gets the calls from people complaining about the other person. Her clothing, it was made well, it was made elegant. Scholars basically say this Proverbs 31 woman probably had means. She was of wealth. She was prosperous, because the things that are talked about wouldn't have been kind of the ordinary clothes and things like that, but she always had a smile on her face every day. That's when she says she laughs at the time to come. That means she looked forward with a good attitude of what was to come. How often do we do that? Or looking forward to tomorrow. The idea of this anxiousness that we walk around with, that's not of the Lord. Scripture says we should cast our cares to the Lord and He will sustain us. We should take our anxiety and hand it over to God and go to Him with prayers and petitions and thankfulness. And you guys know the attitude of gratitude comes when a person, I think you choose that. Because I could choose the negative. Every day I wake up, I'm getting beat down with the same words you are. The devil's trying to get in my ear every single day. You ought to hear after I preach what I hear. People said, you hear voices? I'm like, you ought to hear after I preach what I hear. I'm stupid. I'm worthless. The people can't even stand me. I'm a failure. I go through all day long after church. The anxiety that comes from that. The pit of depression that can come from that. As you go like, what are we really doing here? As we try to magnify and make much of God, and then the enemy sets on his attack, and then I have to, as the Bible says, I have to resist the devil, and then he will flee, right? But that's hard to do when you do it. You seem like you're doing it again and again and again. Am I just describing my life, or is it your life as well? I don't want you to miss this. When she speaks, she has something worth saying and always says it kindly. How often do we say things in an unkind way? Specifically to our spouse or even our children. We can be one way out in public with other people, right? But then behind closed doors, it's a whole different person. She's active, not idle. She lives with an attentive eye to her family and their needs. I was just at Walmart last night with a friend, and I don't go to Walmart very often, generally speaking, just to kind of kick the tires and shop groceries. My wife does a lot of those things. But I was there, and I said, our air fryer broke. I need to get an air fryer. So we went and looked at the air fryers, and there's about 20 of them, And I picked out a nice, good air fryer that I thought would stand up to the beating that my kids give it to it every single day that they use the air fryer, right? But I was being attentive. What I'm saying is I was being attentive. Because my wife's had to cook things in the stove or the oven that'll take 30 minutes in the oven, but 10 minutes in the air fryer. Understand what I'm saying? You guys, everybody loves the air fryer, right? It's a very popular thing. And so ours broke that we had for 5 years. I didn't want to buy another one. But it was something my wife was a reasonable, hey, can we just get another one? Absolutely, let's get one. And I was there, and I went and took care of it last night. Here's some application. She lives out James 3. James 3 is all about the tongue. And how the tongue basically has the ability to set a forest on fire. Do you guys understand James 3? The tongue, that says, is like the rudder of a ship. This little thing can guide your whole life, right? Can mess up your whole day or make your whole day go good and right? It's basically saying she has control of her tongue, knowing life and death can be spoken. Here's what James 3:13 says, if you are wise and understand God's ways, prove it by living an honorable life, doing good works with the humility that comes from wisdom. Goes on to say, her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. It's basically saying her children stand up and testify of the impact that the mother has had on their lives. And then it goes on to say that the husband jumps on because he's a smart brother and says, yes, she is an exceptional wife and an exceptional woman. We are praising her. She does very well. And he's echoing, we have the best mother in the world. Husbands, on Mother's Day, do you speak to your wife that way? Sons, on Mother's Day, do you speak to your mom that way? The children likely learn, scholars said, to praise their mother from watching their father. Fathers, what would your children say? Little kids I love because they're really honest. You can ask a little kid. I was reading a book called The Rooster, the Dog, the Cat, and the Mouse. And it talked about different things, like different bugs. And then I asked the kids, like, what was going on in their world. And then I heard about rats, cockroaches, bed bugs. I didn't expect that. I was just reading a book to first graders. And then you got to hear what's going on in the homes of some of the children. Then it makes you have a little more compassion for the brokenness in our world. It ends with, charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her work praise her in the gates. The tribute to this incredible woman ends, as it should, with an eternal perspective, giving praise to our Lord. Charm and beauty are not bad, but they are simply not what makes a woman. Yet, what does our culture say to pursue? Beauty, maybe a little charm, but pursue the beauty. She knows what matters, and she knows what lasts. She knows what is eternal. There are things she values. She has this inner spiritual beauty that shines through anything that you would see on the physical outside. She knows God well, and she seeks Him above all else. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Do you desire to please Him? Do you desire to know Him? Do you desire to obey Him? And do you desire to honor Him? This fits with everybody. So whether you're a man or a woman in here today, what are your desires? You can present desires at church for an hour, but the Lord knows what's really desired in your heart. You can't hide that from Him. What are your real desires? If you get nothing else today, pursuing the Lord first will yield a fruitful and worthy life. A fruitful and worthy life. Pursuing the Lord first. Proverbs begins with a dad telling his son to listen to Lady Wisdom, and it ends with a husband praising his wife. To be a Proverbs 31 wife and mom, you must be a saved woman, a godly woman, a Bible woman, and a Jesus woman. And then you will reach the full potential that God has for your womanhood.